not necessarily fully.
Okay, okay. I recording. I was gonna talk in Spanish then. It's recording, right? I have here the recording, but it doesn't come up here. I don't know why it doesn't come up here. It says this, and I'm not sure how to say this or how to. I don't know. It's just a picture, just a picture. Then yeah, on it, it's got a recording to it. Okay, I'm gonna do what I can, how I can, and how I got to do it with. And so, to do that, I'm gonna have to put. I don't know how loud you can put this. You gotta go really loud. Okay. It's very, very serious. Um, I'm very, very nervous. I'm very curious. I see a picture of a sexy secretary, a sexy man. Apparently, this is a website, and the name of the website is called thewire.in. So it's an Indian. Oh yeah, look, it's got that writing. It says the wire in English, and douche, and then douche, and douche, and douche. Right, and then it's called douche, and then douche. Seriously. Anyway, it says the wire dot in. But anyway, I probably it's a report news website. It's got politics, economic, internal affairs, security, laws, science and society and culture. Okay, I haven't got it on the phone because I couldn't find it. This is don't worry. You will find it. I know you will. And if you wanna whatever, anyway, I'm gonna read you this, and this is what it says on it. It says on thewire.in. That's the name of the website. Thewire.in. Okay, I don't know if the word is together, but on the top where the URL is, it says all together, the wire, the THE wire, THEWIRE that's what it says. And then on the bottom, when you it goes the wire English, then douche, and douche. What the only reason I'm going douche because it's got that writing like little pictures. But anyway, let's forget about that. Okay, then somehow you have to find the word well, like the well news. So find the word well. Look, we've been for a while now. After it says up here, the well. After I'm reading now, I'm reading what the report says. Okay, after Pegasus fiasco, Israel slashes list of countries that can buy cyber tech report. Okay, Israel is selling cyber tech report, right? And it says after Pegasus fiasco, Israel slashes list of countries that can buy cyber tech report. Then on the keeps going. It says Mexico, Morocco, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE were unknown countries that would now be barred from importing Israel cyber tech. They're barred. And it's got this picture of sexy people, right, on some kind of a building. I can see police officers on one corner. I can see maybe security guard. I don't know. These people are high tech anyway. Israel cyber firm NSO Group. I read again. On the picture says on the bottom of the picture it says Israel cyber firm NSO Groups exhibited stand in Tel Aviv, Israel, June 4, 2019. Photo, Rota, Karen, Maroon file. Then it's got a list. Then it's got a little recording on it. List to this article. Okay, 2 minutes and 34 seconds. Okay, I can't let you listen to it. But on the report, it says that Mexico, many other countries are now being banned to buy this technology, all right? But they don't really say who is banning them, who is doing this banning, something. Anyway, Israel has got a technology. I'm going to light this ciggy. Israel has got a technology that can listen into people's mobile phone, to whoever it is that you say they want to listen to my recording, right, or my sex text that I did, all right, whatever, the God, whatever. On the name of God, YouTube, yeah, YouTube, oh, YouTube. Subscribe to my channel, YouTube. Anyway, on the report, I listened to a little bit, not all of it, but 2 minutes, which is nothing. I listened for a bit, and he said on it that someone has stopped these countries, which is Mexico, Morocco, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE, buying this technology to spy on the criminal, to spy on the government, to spy on very high people, right? Not us little people, but you can listen to us. Say my phone is Samsung, right? If my phone is Samsung, the people who own the company Samsung could be listening to me and say this person does a lot of this, that, and that information can go into like this, but they don't sell my name, they sell my information to the cyber web, right? And who is the cyber web? Where the crypto and other things are there, extra things, and they gain popularity and they gain money for it, right? Like Facebook. You're going to Facebook, you're going to Instagram, Twitter, to YouTube, to wherever you go in the internet, someone is saying tick, 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 and they're sending a signal and they get that and they make money out of it. Right. It's incredible. Like, it's like a farm it's like a thing that they got. They go, these people are living in Australia and now a bit came here, so they hang a thing. They did a bit came here, they collected information, they say, this is what we got out of it, this phone number, these people, this person, and they sell this information to this. You don't make any money out of it, but they do. They make money out of it, right? Right. Anyway, they're making money out of it. I don't nothing. Like, you can only do what you can and you got to do, right? Oh my God, I can't even say anything anyway. I'm lighting the ciggy. Anyway, it's not compromising your name, surname. They don't really care who you are, right? They don't really know, They don't really think that you. It's not about you. It's about what's coming out of your phone, right? It's going into cyber, extraterrestrial. Who knows? Maybe a god. You're going, what? How? Where? What? Something that we humans can't understand. I don't understand it. What is cyber firm NSA group? What is that? Israel Cyber Firm NSA group. What is that about? I don't know. Anyway, it's in this report where the wire.in is got it on this website. It's an Indian thingy. It says Israel. It says Jerusalem on the bottom. It said well, 2 hours ago. Jerusalem, Israel / its list of countries illegally to buy its cyber technology following the concern over possible abuse abroad. The hacking tool to sold by Israel firm NSO Group. Israel Kalkalis financial newspaper report on Thursday. All right, but anyway, it keeps going on and on about that Mexico and Saudi Arabia and all this Morocco. It's really silly, okay? They've got this cyber technology. They want to sell it to the planet Earth, and Israel is doing that, making a lot of cash. We're not saying. Look, I'm not saying the amount, because you're going to go, stop it. I'm not saying the amount, and I'm not saying anymore. You can come to come to this website. It's called The Wire. Okay. What I've got here, I'm gonna keep going. It's nothing to do with this, that, but it's similar, and I am concerned, and so, I don't know. Okay, I don't want you to be selfish or anything like that, but I'm gonna get a little bit of it, and then there's another one I need to get a little bit. So this will be like, Anyway, I don't even know. YouTube, Google, phone, technology, cyber. Who knows? They might, sexy. I've sent sexy message with little clip of a sex tape and silly. I don't know. Am I getting searched for doing crazy? Everything I do out of this phone that I'm doing now, being collected by some dark web AI or something, or some crap that it's God, mate. It's God. It's cyber God. Okay, don't worry about it. Let's just talk shit and then die, mate. You fuck off. Black web, whatever you call yourself.
And threat detection software is able to run the whoever it was that worked on that, deserves a lot of credit for that. But specifically that, the latest version of iOS was targeted on, the latest models. And the latest models have, some very, very advanced hardware mitigations to try and prevent intrusions of this type. The latest builds of iOS are designed so that iMessage in particular, which was the thing that was exploited, all of the processing for this happens inside a very locked down container, which Apple calls Blast Door. And, NSO was still able to, breach through all of these defenses that have taken place. And I think it's a really important point that these defenses can be breached. They are being breached in the wild. And I think it's something that should alarm a lot of folks that, the list of targets here is as large as it is, and that this was discovered in what appears to be, not being caught directly, but being sort of caught through the infrastructure adjacent to the attack. And what I mean by that is, that this attack was not discovered through, Apple discovering it. It was not discovered because one of the users had some security software on their phone that was able to detect the attack. Rather, the list of targets was obtained tangential to that, and then some of those targeted individuals had forensics done on their phone, and that forensics that was done on their phone was not done by Apple. It was not done by security software on the device. In fact, it would not be possible to do this type of forensic activity on an ordinary iPhone device. What Amnesty had to do was they had to make use of a jailbreak. And what jailbreaks are is they essentially exploit vulnerabilities in the device in order to disable some of Apple's lockdown functionality in order to be able to allow the forensics people to access some of these files, which then they were able to access, and that allowed them to see that this was NSO Group's implant and what was going on under the hood. And I think that should be alarming because it tells us two different things. First of all, that this mythology that iPhones are so secure might actually be that we just don't have any visibility into, some of these attacks taking place. That, maybe there's a lot of attacks taking place and we just don't know about it. And so we're mistakenly believing that iPhones are extremely hard when actually it's just that we can't see. And second of all, that the ability to run security software, the ability to, run some of these forensics tools is so extremely difficult. It's not merely that, a user hasn't enabled it, it's that a user cannot enable it. Apple actively engineers their device to prevent these types of jailbreaks. A consequence of this is that performing this type of forensics is really, really difficult and something that Apple actively tries to prevent. And I think that's something that's very problematic and we need to sort of come to terms with in the cybersecurity industry.
Is Google similarly situated in that regard, or are they less rigid?
Google is dramatically less rigid. In the event that you are on a not SIM-locked device, then you can perform a surprisingly, wide range of forensics on your device. It is still considerably more locked down than, say, Microsoft Windows, where, a huge range of like antivirus software and, threat detection software is able to run relatively, freely. But it is dramatically more available for forensics than iPhones, where it's a very hostile environment for security companies.
I just want to add two key points to what Matt has said. Matt is absolutely right. We have no idea how big this problem is. Most of our phones indeed could be compromised right now, and we just wouldn't know it, which is just absolutely scary thought when you think about the type of information that your phone has access to, with a microphone, with a camera that could be turned on surreptitiously, and so forth. The second point is that when you look at the advances we have made in the cybersecurity industry, particularly in the last 10 years, the biggest advance, I would argue, has been sort of the change in strategy, the assume breach mentality. Assume that someone is going to get into your network, assume that they're going to penetrate all of the defenses you put in place, and the goal is not to stop them from doing that. The goal is to find them as quickly as possible before they do any damage. The phone model, the phone security model, both on iOS and to some extent on Android, is completely the opposite of that. It is still stuck in the 80s and 90s where we're trying to prevent someone from getting in when we know it's impossible. And in fact, what Apple has done in particular is more advanced than we've ever done in terms of building both hardware and software security-based mechanisms. And as Matt has just said, it has still completely been broken by NSO and probably many others. So we need to pressure both of these vendors to change direction and still continue to invest in obviously making things more difficult to break into, but understand that you will never succeed in that, and give consumers the tools to determine if their phone may have been compromised. Give us the visibility.
Thunder, 111 decibels. Hailstones, 55 millimeters in diameter. Damage risk, high. Fortunately, with hail alert on the new...
And you know, Sydney Morning Herald, minds wide open.
The assumption that, use Signal, don't use Signal, use, encryption, don't use encryption. The phones themselves are going to be compromised and shedding a lot of information about you. Or should we operate on the assumption that a list of 50,000 targets is a numerator and the denominator is, many, many, many decimal points? Beyond that, you operate on the assumption that the technology is not necessarily fully secure, but reasonably secure.
So, yeah, I think generally, one of the other things that I think is quite important from the NSO story is...
I'm going to stop because I need to go to this one. And then when you go to that one, you have to go to this one. Okay. This one.
I'm mad. I'm honestly really upset about the current state of our mobile phone options. I want privacy and security when it comes to my communication devices. And I often lie to myself and say that's the single most important feature of a phone. I don't want anyone eavesdropping on what I do when I'm on my phone. But
okay. They're talking about Phantom. It's a program. I can't explain it. I don't have a mindset. I believe on God. I believe that my native people in Chile, because I'm Chilean, were cyber intelligent before creation was created to kill, genocide, killing. You see, we got YouTube, we got Google, we got Facebook, and all these enterprise mindset mixed things, web, dark web, AI, many other things, extraterrestrial, to how we will go boom to AOIL, bago bo ba to AO ma I o tuk tuk kaka pati to ma me o. Please subscribe to me. Leave me. I die. My people. I love you, Pakistan. I love you, India. I love you, Mexico. I love you, Chile. I love you, Australia. I love you, Germany. I love you, planet extraterrestrial. I go find you too, ma. You go get fucked. You dead now. Baila tua popa. On the name of God, YouTube, Google, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, dark web, AI, Phantom, different technologies created, too much cyber attack, too much everything. My God, technology, fuck off.
Fingers in his ears and sort of turns a blind eye to the issue as well.
As more crimes were committed by people using Phantom Secure, it frustrated the authorities even more.
Australia and Canada, they basically set up a plan, which is that, well, it's all well and good if people say that criminals are using these phones, but we need to show that the CEO, Vince Ramos, also knows that and potentially will lean into that market as well. So a confidential human source, a CHS in the FBI and the DOJ's turn of phrase, someone close to Ramos, who was a distributor, convinces the CEO to come to Las Vegas for a meeting, saying, I have these guys who are really, really big. They want to buy a large order of phones. So they set up a meeting in a Las Vegas hotel suite. Vince Ramos goes in, and these drug traffickers are sat there, and they're saying, we know you removed the GPS functionality from the phone, but we have a problem with snitches, basically, right? What if, they hypothesize, could you maybe also turn the phone into a tracking device if we needed to, kill one of our snitches? They don't say it exactly like that, I'm paraphrasing, but when you read the transcript, that's the quite clear context of what's going on. And Ramos doesn't seem to really push against that idea. But the key thing that really seals Vince Ramos's fate is when the drug traffickers say, we don't know you. We don't know if we can trust you. Why should we trust you? In so few words. And Vince Ramos says, well, look, I know you don't know me, but this is what I made it for. I made it exactly for this. Apparently meaning drug trafficking, is how the FBI said. And that was it, basically. After that quote, prosecutors in the FBI will be able to say, look, he has no problem selling to drug traffickers deliberately and knowingly. They had what they needed, basically, on tape.
Around this time, it appears that Vince Ramos met with members of the Sinaloa cartel, which is a major drug trafficking cartel in Mexico.
On February 8th, 2018, it appears that Vince Ramos is just traveling for business, and he's just had a meeting. And he's sending a text message to one of his associates, and he says, we are fucking rich, man. I swear you better go fucking appreciate it. Get the fucking Range Rover brand new, because I just closed a lot of business. This week, man, Sinaloa cartel, that's what's up. And my boy is Punjabi cartel. Lol. So this text message does seemingly suggest that he met with people from the Sinaloa cartel and either offered them phones or did sell them phones or something like that. But this is one of the key pieces of evidence that later appears in the criminal complaint against him, a screenshot of the text message.
So by this time, the FBI has enough information to arrest Ramos, but they sort of wait a year before they do anything, perhaps to collect even more information? My theory is that the FBI wanted time to think about what to do with these encrypted phones. One option is to try to arrest Vince and take down the whole company. Another option, though, might be to try to find a way to infiltrate the network so they can read the messages and have a jump on criminals using it. These phones were sort of a watering hole for criminals and would be a major source of information if they could somehow get access to the messages or customer data. But eventually, one of the FBI agents posed as a drug trafficker and invited Vince Ramos out to Las Vegas, Nevada to discuss business.
But this time, when Ramos walks into a hotel suite, there aren't drug traffickers waiting for him. It's the FBI and the attorney's office. And they tell him what's happening, obviously. We have, charges ready for you, but we want to make you an offer. We want you to put a back door into Phantom Secure. We want to see who the customers are and, what they're saying. That is the ultimate goal here, right? They could try and take down the company, but law enforcement really want to see what's actually going on there so they can prosecute the end users. Vince Ramos declines. Some people I spoke to said it's because he puts the privacy of his clients first. Others said that, well, actually, he didn't have the technical know-how to do that because that's the CTO's job. He is more the business guy. Regardless, he refuses and doesn't put the back door in.
Now, this is a part of the story which gets weird for me. Vince actually traveled to Vegas with his wife and child, who were staying in another room in the same hotel. This meeting with Vince went on for a long time. They didn't quite arrest him, and he was cooperating with them by talking openly about Phantom Secure and how the company operated. But there was something the FBI wanted and didn't want to let him go until they got it. There were 4 or 5 agents there. Some were FBI, some were international agents. They ordered food to the room and he could use the toilet there. Vince and the FBI agents spent the entire day together, all in this hotel room. At night, they even let him go see his wife and child and say goodnight, and then bringing him back to the room for more questioning. Eventually, Vince and a few agents fell asleep, while 1 or 2 agents stood guard all night, making sure Vince didn't leave. Then the next day, after breakfast was brought to the room, Vince was questioned more by the FBI agents. And this is just so weird for me. For the FBI to question someone for days in a hotel room, like, why not take him down to the police station and question him there? Why keep him trapped in this room without officially arresting him?
I think it was because they really wanted or were hoping that this would be a more live operation. This wasn't like the end of it. This wasn't, let's arrest him, let's get a confession or whatever we can and let's prosecute the guy. They were hoping, it seems, that this could live on for a little bit longer. And I mean, they needed him out. Let's say they did eventually get a backdoor into Phantom Secure. They needed to not raise suspicion. He needed to be out. He needed to be free to talk to people eventually if they did get a backdoor in.
So the FBI continued to pressure him to give them a backdoor into Phantom Secure. I presume that they showed him the evidence that they had on him and gave him hardball type options of like, hey, look, you're either going to go to prison or you're going to let us in. And even though he wasn't letting them in, it seemed like the FBI really wanted to get in. So instead of arresting him and taking him to the police station, they just kept interrogating him all the way through the night into day 3. They gave him more breaks to see his family down the hall sometimes. His wife said he looked like a ghost. And maybe this is why he was talkative and cooperative, because his wife and kids were just down the hall and he didn't want to lose them. The FBI continued to try to persuade him to give them some kind of access to the network. They wanted to see who the users were and any data Phantom Secure had on them, because this phone did have the remote wipe capability, so it was able to interact with the customer's devices in some ways. But Ramos still didn't give them access. Eventually, the interrogation went into the 3rd night and into the 4th day. Vince fell asleep in the suite, and the agents were so tired at this point, they all fell asleep at the same time too. But Vince woke up during the night, and he got up and looked around the room and saw everyone was asleep.
When all of the agents are asleep, Ramos, he sees a moment to escape, and in a seemingly quick change of heart, he flees the hotel. And, embarrassingly for these agents who have been guarding and talking to this guy for days now, the guy they've been hunting for years has left. He's out the door.
He stopped in one last time to say goodbye to his wife and contacted an associate who picked him up by car, and the two of them were gone. Vince immediately tried to get to Canada, and he thought he wouldn't be able to get through airport security, so they decided to drive from Nevada all the way across the country to Washington State. And when they got to Bellingham, Washington, about 20 miles from the border of Canada, Vince parted ways with his driver and was preparing his last leg to get across the Canadian border.
He was on the run. He was trying to evade law enforcement for some time, until eventually they caught up with him in a cafe, and apparently it was a very unceremonious scene. I spoke to the cafe owner, who said that several serious-looking men came into the cafe. They seemingly saw Vince Ramos sat in the corner. They went outside, made a phone call, and then a larger group of men arrived, go up to Vince, and he doesn't fight. He just stands up, puts his hands behind his back, and he's led into the police car, and that is finally the end, for him at least,
Vince was arrested and brought to court in the U.S. under RICO charges. And RICO stands for Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations. The case hinged on whether they could prove that Phantom Secure was knowingly helping criminals. But the prosecutors had ample evidence showing that Vince knowingly sold phones to criminals and was helping support them. Vince told the judge, quote, "I would be lying if I said I wasn't aware of what's going on. The reality was that I turned a blind eye and didn't want to face reality. I was making money and providing for my wife and children." End quote.
At least according to one estimate from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police in 2016, they believed that Phantom was making something like $32 million from the sale of these phones. And then eventually, I believe another estimate from the FBI was closer to $80 million in selling these devices. Vince Ramos, they bought apartments, cars, cryptocurrency as well. So they were making a lot of money from this operation.
The courts found Vince guilty and sentenced him to 9 years in prison. Not for making secure phones, but for helping criminals commit crimes with them.
And, I think he could have got more than that, but he did cooperate somewhat, and, this was his first offense. I mean, the judge even said that, he appears to be a very upstanding person, a successful businessman, but he applied it to the wrong industry, ultimately.
We're going to take a quick break here, but stay with us because there's more to these encrypted phones that I think you'd be interested in hearing about. Support for this episode comes from Ping Identity. Ping Identity is the leader in enterprise identity security. This company doesn't just provide identity solutions, they champion it. To champion identity is to think more broadly about the concept of identity and how it impacts businesses and their employees and customers. You don't want your customers being frustrated with their login experience, and you don't want your login system to be weak or insecure. Ping.
Hello. My name is Hector. I'm Chilean from Australia. What I'm listening to now is called Darknet Diaries 105 Secret Cell Darkness Diary. It's the name of the podcast. It's gone for a long time now, and I have to turn it off because my battery is running out of power. But I will fast forward a bit and you will see the end result. I forgot the name of the person, Ramos or something. This one guy, very smart guy in America, very, very smart, right? So smart, he can create crypto security and get into anyone's phone, anyone's computer, anyone's technology, anything. All right. Sometimes I swear, I like swearing a lot in my YouTube channel. I like this, I like that. YouTube. You understand? You will see. Yo hablo español. Maka pute tabua. Awote o ma o papata. E o otro a wete. A o pai. O pai o e do ak bawe. Ya ben when they want bawe. Tabo. A pui o me o. A pui ma wen con ma. Ni tang pa. Huh? Okay. I must go to show you a bit more. I am very, very sorry. I apologize. Your party, for kids or anyone, family, everybody, I like volleyball, beach volleyball. It's very sexy, beach volleyball, surfing, sport, economics, money, extraterrestrial. I am Boto Pa E. Understand? You love me, I love you too. I must look after you. I can't be rude. Me being rude, no good. No listening, no reply, no listening, no do what I can and what I got to do. Moi ma, ya capoeta ya. Tu are. I'm bobte bobada. Okay? And these phantom people, Black Lives Matter. No, black man, black something. You tell the truth, you die. Mariko tu pa, win king go, ninja matu, in one ball. Teto, Pawoma, Putino, Putama, Makona, Chong Chong, Kinkanga, Ikwe Puta Marigon, Tintong Kaka Kuku, Taka. Here, please. Listen more, please. I love you.
Between where they were made and the customers who were buying them, which is a wild and scary attack to think that the person...
They sell these phones, the secret ones. You buy from website. After in Australia, I have connections with Canada, America, Mexico, and Israel create this technology. Israel, but no stop. It's genocide. When kill Jesus Christ, Bible, we not talk. Must not talk now. Cry. My people die. Got taken over. Chile, Spanish, English, America, genocide. You understand me now, later, whatever. I love you. Me fight karate. Me fight for justice. Me fight revolution. Me fight protesting. I die. You people love me. Whoopala. I cry.
Buying these devices from might be selling you a phone that was compromised by the police and didn't even know it. So if I'm putting one and one together here, Belgium, said they infiltrated part of the network and arrested 160 people, and Sky is saying somebody's putting out fake phones or fake apps that has, some sort of malware or something on it. It sounds like the Belgian police may have been the ones who did that.
Potentially, yes. But honestly, we just don't know at this point. It's so unclear, and it's one of the cases we probably know the least about, even though it's one of the more popular encrypted phone companies for sure.
I think this is a sign that the police are becoming pretty sophisticated at fighting crime. The French authorities are advanced enough to be able to put malware on thousands of people's phones, and now, potentially, the Belgian police are doing supply chain attacks? It's a wild new world we're in. Well, after this incident, the U.S. Department of Justice indicted one of the owners of the Sky encrypted phone company, which means the DOJ believes they have enough evidence to bring this person to trial and prove they have violated RICO laws.
I contact a source at the company, and I say, hey, can I just get a comment on this indictment? And they say, sorry, what indictment is that? I send them the PDF, and they go silent. Clearly, I was the one who told them there was this indictment against their company, and we don't speak for a little while. Eventually, Jean-Francois comes out with a statement and provides it to us that they really vehemently deny the charges against the company and about him specifically, and they're going to fight it. They're, according to their statement, or one of the most recent ones, they are really actually going to try and fight this in court. So completely different to the Phantom Secure case, like not cooperating and really thinking that it's an unjust charge against them.
And once again, that court case is going to hinge on one thing: whether Sky knew they were selling to criminals to help them commit crimes.
Yes, the way that the US will prosecute one of these under RICO is if they can prove that Sky or anyone else sold these phones deliberately to facilitate criminal activity and knowingly did that. We honestly have no idea if the DOJ has that sort of information. I'm going to guess the DOJ wouldn't file an indictment based on absolutely nothing, but we have to see what evidence they have eventually, and we haven't seen that yet. And Jean-Francois is going to fight the case, is my understanding.
So we looked at Phantom Secure, EncroChat, and Sky ECC, but there's so many more encrypted phone companies out there. They're all coming and going. It's hard to keep track of them, which means there's no lack of wild stories that happen with these companies. Another story I find fascinating is one that comes from an encrypted phone company called Enetcom.
So yeah, Enetcom was one of these early encrypted phone companies that were using BlackBerries. Pretty popular at the time, especially in Europe. And this was sort of the first, for lack of a better word, takedown of an encrypted phone company that I saw and I reported on at the time. And in this case, Dutch police were able to get the content of the messages, which was, very unusual at the time. And eventually it came out that it appears that there was some sort of misconfiguration with how Enetcom encrypted these communications. Authorities managed to get hold of the server, and I think it was potentially the keys were also stored on the server, and they were able to decrypt the communications like that. So it advertised itself as end-to-end encrypted, but, that wasn't really the case if they were able to get hold of the server and then actually obtain the contents of communications that way. It was an implementation issue, basically.
Wow, again, the European police are really blowing my mind here with their attack capabilities. To find an implementation flaw in a Netcom's communication network and to exploit that to be able to relay messages back to the police is really incredible work. This resulted in the Dutch police collecting and decrypting 3 million messages sent over Enetcom's devices. Enetcom must have been furious over this, but were quiet about it.
We didn't hear much at all. I mean, I think the authorities, they shut down the network themselves at the time. I remember the owner of Enetcom had some very expensive-looking lawyers when I went to their website and, tried to chat to them for a bit. But no, they kind of fizzled out and they kind of faded into obscurity along with the owner. Meanwhile, everybody moves on to the other companies as well at the time. There's still business to be done for these guys.
And yes, this is offensive operations being carried out by the police. They are actively hacking into and infiltrating networks, servers, and phones in order to collect evidence on criminals. This is way different than what I previously imagined the police were doing in regards to computers, which I thought they were doing more forensic-type computer work, trying to look through the logs of a seized device to figure out what someone did. And that's totally different work than hacking into a network covertly, placing malware on it, and collecting user data. So the police must have had to put a lot of time and effort and resources just into building the team which would be capable of doing this.
Yeah, totally. I mean, this must be a real thorn in their side if they're willing to contribute this time, resources, expertise to disrupting or shutting down or ultimately getting to the contents of the communications of these phones. As I mentioned, while everybody's been looking at Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp, this is the real stuff that's been going on with the organized crime people.
Wait, clear that up for me. What do you mean? What is everyone looking at Facebook and Messenger?
Sure. So, sorry, I just mean very generally that when we have the so-called going dark debate among law enforcement and civil liberties advocates and, digital privacy advocates, that sort of thing, a lot of the commentary is on popular consumer devices. The San Bernardino Apple case where the DOJ tried to legally force Apple to unlock the phone, the case where the DOJ tried to secretly get Facebook to somehow bug an encrypted communication, and then, various laws potentially impacting the security of WhatsApp, let's say. There's a lot of discussion around that. And then more recently, a lot of stuff around child sexual abuse imagery and catching people who are using consumer devices for that sort of thing. I mean, in my opinion, the so-called going dark debate is really happening with these encrypted phones. This is where law enforcement are being very aggressive with their techniques, both in a legislative sense, when it comes to RICO and using that, and in a technical sense when they're deploying malware en masse. If we're going to have this conversation around what sort of access should law enforcement have to private messages, what sort of messages should be available to authorities, what's off limits, what's on limits. I don't know what the outcome of that discussion is, and as my place as a journalist is not really to say where it should go, but I do think that people should be including this sort of stuff in that conversation because it's real world case studies of this going on.
There's another encrypted phone company called MPC, and this one is crazy.
MPC is, in my opinion, the most interesting encrypted phone company. We've had these stories of tech entrepreneurs or just business people deciding to make these encrypted phone firms. Maybe they want the money, maybe they care about privacy, maybe it's a mix, whatever. Here, MPC is a company made by organized crime for organized crime. It's run, as we found, talking to multiple sources, in and around the industry, that it's run by two serious top-tier gangsters, colloquially known as the Brothers from Scotland, and they deal with a lot of the drug trade going into Scotland, and then, obviously beyond its borders as well. They did use Enitcom for a while, but then they decided to, well, no, we don't want to trust our security to this company. Why don't we make our own? And they did that with NPC, but they also see an opportunity. If people want to work with us, they need to use our phones. So they sell the devices as well. And that actually became, a business opportunity in its own right, actually running this company to then sell the devices to other organized criminals as well. It's diversifying their portfolio, essentially.
Well, nobody really knew who was running it at first. But because it was run by gangsters, they conducted their business differently than the others. For instance, they didn't like the competition that was in the encrypted phone market, so they started threatening their distributors who also sold their competitors' phones.
One of the people I spoke to was threatened to be killed because they were selling a competitor's phones in the same sort of area that NPC was also involved in. And at least one person was slashed, my understanding, where you take a knife and you slash their cheeks. So, their mouth has a very large cut on it. That's the sort of violence that these people were perpetrating, as well as, intimidating phone calls and that sort of thing.
At some point, NPC messaged Joseph out of the blue.
And they were asking me, hey, do you do reviews of encrypted phones or anything like that? Just what anybody would do with an iPhone, a sort of normal tech outlet where they send you the new iPhone, you review it or whatever. I don't do that. That's just not the sort of work I do. And I said, if you send me the phone, I'll look at it, but I'm not going to be paid for a review, because they were offering payments, and obviously that's unethical. They said, sure. They never ended up sending the phone, but they were clearly trying to establish some sort of legitimacy in the space by getting, a journalist or anybody else just to write what they thought about the device. And I should say that the NPC did say, just do an honest review or whatever, but that's a very unusual dynamic to then, for a company you then later find out is run by, top-tier organized crime.
The police started investigating NPC, and they also said this is very unusual for an organized crime group to create their own encrypted phone business, but the story gets even darker after that.
So one of the other ways, beyond trying to get reviews from journalists, that NPC was trying to get marketing was, just sort of these brand deals. And there's a fairly famous former criminal turned blogger turned sort of journalist in Amsterdam called Martin Koch. And, he's out of prison after murder convictions, and he writes on his blog called Butterfly Crime. And there he makes a lot of enemies. He will name people. He will say what various crime elements are up to. And there are lots of attempts on his life. I mean, you can go on YouTube and you can check out, the Dutch police showed a car bomb that was targeted against him, and it's a truly huge explosion that they do a controlled explosion just to get rid of the bomb. Anyway, NPC works with Martin for some branding. It's like, hey, just tweet some photos of you wearing this NPC shirt and the phones, and we could run adverts on your website, that sort of thing. And eventually NPC say, well, let's keep this business relationship going. Why don't you meet with one of our associates? And him and the associate, they go to a sex club on the outskirts of Amsterdam. There's CCTV footage of Martin Koch walking around with somebody down the street of Amsterdam, and a man in a hoodie runs up behind him, puts a gun to Martin's head, and for some reason, Martin isn't shot. Maybe the guy freaks out, maybe the trigger jams or whatever, but he points the gun, it doesn't work, and then he runs away. And that's the first attempt on his life that day. And then when they eventually leave, sort of blurry-eyed, from the sex club, and Martin Koch is getting into his car, a man jumps from the bushes and shoots him and kills him. And we were told shortly after that, or sometime after that, that this was an assassination with the consent and the help of MPC, the phone company, and by extension, the brothers who ran that company.
Whoa. Now, that's scary. And I suppose it means you can't trust an encrypted phone company that's run by criminals. And it also means that MPC is clearly breaking laws, while some of these other phone companies, it's not so clear. Which, yeah, it's going to cause them to be investigated by the police, and they're going to want to probably shut this company down. So the police started investigating MPC to figure out who's running it, and this did lead them to find out it's being run by some known criminal brothers in Scotland, and this revealed their identities.
Yes, so my source provided the name of the two brothers beforehand, James Gillespie and his brother as well. And then the police do announce that. They announce the two names of them and their various associates as well. Later on, they arrest one of the associates in South America, I believe. But at the moment, it seems that the brothers, at least from my understanding, are still on the run. Yeah.
Ah, so they went into hiding.
Yes, yeah, and there's some reporting on crime blogs that they're also in South America, but there's it's hard to say. That these people may move around. These are highly technical, highly resourced individuals, right? I mean, I doubt they're going to stay in one place for too long.
But when one secure phone company goes down, it just seems like two more pop up.
A constant theme with these companies is that once one shuts down, either of their own volition or law enforcement hacks them or otherwise carries out an operation against them, these criminal users or users in general, they still need a phone. So they will go to another one. So when EncroChat was closed, another company called Omerta did a sort of discount offer where you could either get phones cheap or buy one, get one free or something like that. And presumably, maybe some people went over to that. When Phantom shut down, a lot of the user base was absorbed by Sky and then also by Cypher as well. Cypher is still going. It's probably the biggest, or at least the most established and longest living encrypted phone company that is still going right now. But, is Cypher being investigated? I mean, probably in some capacity, right? It's been going on for so long that maybe they could be the next target.
And there's another encrypted phone out there that looks really promising. It's called Anom, kind of short for anonymous. And it has a cool dual boot thing. Check this out. When you boot it up, it asks for a PIN to unlock it. That's normal, right? And if you type it in, you see normal apps like Instagram, Facebook, Tinder, Netflix, even Candy Crush. But if you try to click on any of these apps, they just don't work. They're just dummy apps to make the phone look normal. What you need to do is reboot the phone, but this time enter a different PIN code. When you enter the second secret PIN, it unlocks access to a secret area of the phone. But there are only 3 apps in this secret area, and at first glance they look boring. One is a clock, and the other is a calculator, and the third is device settings. The secret is to open the calculator app, which then asks you for your Anom ID and password. And once you get in there, you can send and receive encrypted messages. This phone is slick and stealthy and more clever than you realize. Anom started up in, I think, 2019, and it was first introduced in Australia. Specifically, people who typically distributed encrypted phones were getting these and passing them around. People were slowly adopting them and using them. Eventually, they made their way into other countries, and criminals, they liked these phones and started using them. But Anom had a secret. It wasn't what people thought it was. It was a honeypot, created entirely by the FBI to snoop, spy, and gather incriminating evidence from criminals. They worked with the Australian law enforcement to spy on Australian criminals, too. But this posed some massive challenges for the FBI. What are the legalities of marketing and selling spy phones like this? How do you even create a shady underground encrypted phone company without it being so good that it goes mainstream? Clearly, the FBI wanted in Phantom secure phones, but didn't get in. And this may have been where they got the idea. If they can't find a way in, they can make their own phone. This was dubbed Operation Trojan Shield in the FBI, and their Anom phones were able to collect 27 million messages from its users. We don't know how many arrests this resulted in, but it's yet another incredible amount of resources that law enforcement has spent to try to infiltrate encrypted, secure phones. But man, now that we've taken this tour of the world of encrypted phones, I feel like I can't trust them. In 4 of these stories, law enforcement infiltrated the chats. I don't want the police reading my chats. And so many of these phones seem like it's just for criminals to use, and I don't want that either. I just want a secure phone that doesn't vacuum up all my data. And I'm not a criminal. I just like privacy. There's got to be some kind of phone out there for me.
There was Silent Circle, which is, of course, is a slightly different user base in that, it was made by Phil Zimmerman, the creator of PGP, and they have this platform where you have silent text, which is obviously text messages, and I think encrypted email or something as well, and they had the black phone. And this communications platform, essentially, that they did try to sell to governments. I think I've seen some, I believe it was the US Navy contracts and that sort of thing. So that isn't the same sort of...
Okay, I have stopped it now. It's gotta go now. One more thing before I go, I gotta put it on this. I don't know how to... ABC News. I don't know, man. I don't know. I think this is it. Okay, this is the ABC News because I live in Australia, and here goes nothing.
ABC News.
Andrew Kalupis with the latest. Communities on flood alert across New South Wales are stocking up on supplies and groceries in case heavy rainfall and rising rivers cut off main roads. Flooding has already caused several road closures across Sydney, and the Bureau of Meteorology has recorded up to 49 millimetres of rainfall around Richmond and Pitt Town in the past 24 hours. The State Emergency Service has issued an evacuation warning for low-lying parts of Scone in the Upper Hunter. The warning applies to 8 streets where a number of properties have been inundated. Major flooding is continuing at Kingdom Ponds. An indefinite curfew has taken effect in the Solomon Islands capital Honiara as civil unrest continued for a 3rd day. A building belonging to the Prime Minister has been set on fire by protesters, with looters breaking in and causing damage. The demonstrators want the Prime Minister to resign, accusing him of neglecting some islands and being too close to China. More than 80 Australian troops and police are expected on the ground to assist with the peacekeeping mission there. The World Health Organization is holding a special meeting to consider the significance of a rapidly spreading new coronavirus variant in South Africa. Experts in Geneva will decide whether it should be designated a variant of concern. Japan and Singapore have followed Britain in announcing restrictions on flights from South Africa and neighbouring countries. Nearly 100 genomic sequences of the variant have been reported. An early analysis shows it has a large number of mutations. Meanwhile, Germany has reported a new record of more than 76,000 COVID-19 cases in a day. Germany has one of the lowest vaccination rates in Western Europe, with about 2/3 of its population fully vaccinated. The Defence Minister says China sees other countries in the region as tributary states. Mr Dutton has told the National Press Club that if China successfully invaded Taiwan, it would net take the disputed Senkaku Islands, which are also claimed by Japan. He says that would leave China as the dominant power in the region. ABC News.
Okay, it's finished. I just like to say that on the name of God, 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 YouTube subscribe. I'm for you. Sport, I smoke marijuana, right? But I sporty. You gotta be sporty. How you gonna fight someone? Oh, you're weak little chicken, are ya? Fuck off, motherfucker. Thank God, no shit, man. YouTube, subscribe to YouTube, to me. I love you. You understand? I am not gonna be fucking around. I'll save your life. Viva la vida loca, amigo. Vamos. Opala. Mira lo que pasa, man. What are you doing? Okay, goodbye. Subscribe. God. Alright?
Not necessarily fully.
Okay. I recording. I was gonna talk in Spanish then. it's recording, right? I have here the recording, but it doesn't come up here. I don't know why it doesn't come up here. It says this, and I'm not sure how to say this or how to. I don't know. It's just a picture, then on it.